Have you ever felt just completely stuck, totally overwhelmed by doubt and not knowing what to do? Well, in this explainer, we're going to dive into a really powerful personal story about that exact struggle and the one single moment of insight that just changed everything, turning this path of total confusion into one of incredible clarity.
All right, so here's the game plan for how we're going to walk through this. First, we'll hit the wall of doubt. Then we'll find the key to progress. After that, we'll look at the path of truth, see how this all goes from event to normalcy, and finally, we'll get to what it really means to achieve a perfect view. So our journey kicks off of what feels like this massive, impossible wall. And we're not talking about just a little bit of confusion here. This is a deep, deep struggle with not knowing, a state of mind that's described as being so tough, it's almost unbearable. Look at the difference here. It's night and day. The journey starts out on this hard, confusing path, filled with uncertainty. But then, after this big breakthrough, that very same path suddenly becomes clear and easy. And what's so wild is that the actual effort didn't change. The only thing that changed was getting rid of one single paralyzing obstacle.
And there it is. The real problem wasn't the practice itself, not at all. The thing that made the path feel so impossible was the doubt. Like the quote says, it just gets you stuck in everything. It's this kind of mental paralysis that makes it impossible to move forward.
And this doubt isn't some vague feeling. It's a constant voice in your head going, I don't know this, or is this even the right way? It's this fundamental uncertainty that makes it absolutely impossible to just pick a path and stick with it. You're just stuck.
So how in the world do you break through a wall of doubt that thick? Well, it turns out it wasn't some slow, gradual thing. Nope, it was a single, powerful realization, a key that unlocked the whole thing and just sliced right through all that confusion.
Okay, so to really get this breakthrough, we have to talk about a core idea called the Five Aggregates, or Khanda 5. The easiest way to think about it is like this. They're the 5 main ingredients that make up our sense of self in any given moment. You've got your body, your feelings, perceptions, thoughts, and your basic awareness. The trick is, we usually mistake this constantly changing recipe for a single solid me.
And boom, here's the aha moment. The key to getting unstuck wasn't trying to figure out what the self is. It was to just watch. To watch its components, those 5 aggregates, as they constantly pop up and then fade away. The big insight is that until you can see this constant flow for yourself, you literally cannot move forward.
But here's the thing. Just noticing this constant change isn't the whole story. To really unleash its power, you have to look at it through a very specific lens, a framework that gives it all meaning. And that lens is the Four Noble Truths, or Arya Sat 4. This is like the foundational teaching of Buddhism. It's basically a doctor's diagnosis and prescription. First, life has stress. Second, there's a reason for that stress. Third, you can end that stress. And fourth, here's the way to do it.
So you can actually think of this as a simple but really powerful formula. You take the direct observation of what you're experiencing, seeing those 5 aggregates arise and cease, and you combine it with the framework of the Four Noble Truths. And that combination right there, that is the path. It's not one or the other, it has to be both together.
Now, this is a really key point. This isn't just presented as one helpful technique out of many. According to this account, this specific combination of seeing things directly and understanding them correctly is the gateway, the one and only door that opens up to the first stage of enlightenment.
Okay, so what happens once you walk through that door? Well, your entire way of seeing things starts to change. An insight that starts off as this rare, special event slowly becomes your new, completely ordinary way of seeing the world.
And you can see how this transformation just naturally unfolds. First, you just catch these little glimpses of things arising and ceasing. But as you keep at it, as step 2 shows, it gets more and more familiar. After a while, it just starts to feel normal. And finally, it's not a special event anymore. It's just how you see things all the time.
This right here is a huge shift in perspective. To say that this constant change is normal means you realize it's not something new you're creating or even discovering. It's how things have always been. The nature of reality didn't change one bit. What changed was your ability to finally see it.
And that really gets to the heart of it, right? The goal isn't to have these special mind-blowing experiences only when you're meditating. The whole point is for this deep insight to become so woven into your daily life that it's just as constant and just as automatic as breathing.
So this entire journey, from being totally paralyzed by doubt to having this constant, clear way of seeing, It all leads to one final destination, a state of being that has a very specific and very powerful name.
And that state is called Ditti Sampanno. It basically translates to perfection of view. You can think of it as being endowed with right view. In plain English, it just means your perception isn't distorted anymore. You're finally seeing things exactly as they are.
So, what does having a perfect view really mean? It's the ability to see everything, every thought, every feeling, every sensation for what it is, a temporary thing that shows up and then inevitably goes away. Your personal perception is finally synced up with how reality actually works.
And this isn't just a nice philosophical idea, it's a huge spiritual milestone. Having this perfect, unshakable view is the #1 defining quality of a Sotāpanna, which means a stream enterer, someone who's taken that first irreversible step on the path to total liberation.
And all of this brings the entire journey back to one simple but incredibly profound truth. It's a fundamental law of the universe. If something doesn't arise in the first place, it can't cease. The two are just completely locked together.
Which leaves us with a final, really powerful question to chew on. If we truly, deeply see that everything that arises must also disappear, does that give us the ultimate freedom? The freedom to maybe step outside of that cycle entirely and choose not to arise in the first place?